Hey Sierra, good morning. Rob Cesternino, and very excited to get the chance to talk with you about everything going on. Sierra, can you start off by talking about that tribal council? And was there anything that you saw either on the beach or at tribal that was tipping you off to where this was going?
Rob, that tribal, I'm like watching back. I even watched it back this morning and it like just makes you nauseous. You're like, how the hell did that end up being me? But I would say leading up to tribal, I had a pretty good feeling that something wasn't right. And I'm like, I always like trust my intuition. It started with Andy and Genevieve were in the water talking, and I'm like kind of like touching base with everybody because I'm like the vibe was already off. And then when I start walking over to them, Genevieve like immediately walks away. And you know, when you're just you feel like you're in high school, I'm like, they're like talking about me. And I'm like a grown woman, like I know what you guys are doing. So then Genevieve walks away. It's Andy and I in the water, which they did show kind of where I'm like, Andy, I'm still your island sister, right? Like, look at me in my eyes and tell me I'm your like kind of like had that this crazy feeling where I'm like, I lost Andy, like he's gone. And I wanted that like reassurance. And you know, that didn't show there. He was like, yeah, you clocked me. We were like already planning on voting you out, like whatever, later in the game. But that wasn't shown. And then Teeny and I had a great relationship, like so many laughs. We couldn't even sit next to each other in the like shelter without like dying laughing. And right before tribal, she couldn't even look me in my eyes. And I'm like, something's not right. And I mouthed to Rachel across the shelter, something is not right. And Rachel's like, I feel weird. And I'm like, I feel weird. Like you just had this feeling. And Rachel obviously had a better feeling than I did, willingly to play her shot in the dark. And looking back, I'm like, I knew something was going to go not the way I thought it was.
Did Rachel tell you at all that she might play the shot in the dark?
No, we never once mentioned it.
And you didn't know about her idol, correct?
Didn't know about the idol.
Okay.
I know. I'm like, if I did, I would have tried to like do some like play that. I thought she
Yeah.
would have, but
All right. So when it comes up and it's a tie between you and Sam and you get to re-vote, are you thinking that, okay, well, they're going to vote out Sam, or did you think it was going to be you?
I was pretty certain that Sam was going to go because I'm
Yeah.
like, why wouldn't they? I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity. And especially with me being able to re-vote, I'm like, well, of course I'm freaking voting Sam. So in my head, I'm like, okay, but then Sam felt the opposite. I mean, Sam felt the same exact way because he's whispering to me, he's like, good luck in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So we both kind of felt the same way. Like I was like, yeah, Sam, you're a goner, but here we are.
Sierra, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about Andy and your experience in terms of how we got to this point in the game. Are you feeling like today, Andy, he's all that?
I'm definitely feeling it where I'm like I look like a fool looking back thinking like I'm like, oh, he's a sloppy player, we're gonna drag him to the end, and then here we are, he's all that moment. But yeah, it's interesting because Andy and I say that we did have a great relationship. Like even though he's older than me, I always explain it like he felt like a little brother to me. Like I was like I did care about him. I felt like we had a great like relationship. I think you got a lot more negativity coming from me about Andy than they showed the positivity. But I did, I felt really good about Andy. He brought me information. I felt comfortable bringing him information. But then things started to get shaky and I let him slip through my fingers at the merge. And even leading into the merge, I'm like, one promise I made to myself, I'm like, I can't let him go. Like, I can't let him just go off and be this like stray animal and go and make all these like little alliances. And sure as hell he did. And I look back and I'm like, I wish I just kept him a little closer and like touched base a little more. But yeah, and then he got me.
Sierra, prior to that, it seemed like at the Annika vote that you were in the position to be able to decide what happened there to keep Andy or to keep Annika. Can you tell us about how you made that decision?
Yeah, so interest. I mean, I knew I was on the bottom of Rachel and Annika. It was like no question about it. even in the edit, you see like that they're close, but not nearly as close as the like how I felt, like
Yeah.
always going off with one another. I always felt like I had to like trail along and touch base, like, hey, we're good, right? We're still good, right? Like I just didn't feel that trust that I felt, at least with just like Sam. I knew Sam had my back, was, going to be truthful to me through and through. And then also there was times like Annika, she found the advantage with Sam. I Sam flashes me the advantage, showed me that they found it, and then Annika, Rachel, and I end up in the water. We're talking, and I asked Annika, like, "Did you and Sam find anything?" Testing her, and she's like, "No, we didn't." And I'm like, "So she's lying to me." So that's like one red flag
Hmm.
right there. Blew up my game at the journey, just saying like, Sam and I formed this really tight, close like alliance, and like that stuck with me the rest of the game, and ultimately is why everybody knew going into the merge, we got to get Sam or Sierra, we got to split them up.
Okay, good. I wanted to ask you about that because the Sam and Sierra thing really took on a life of its own, and I wanted to know because that conversation there was more than that she said on the journey than ultimately we got to see on the show. Is that correct?
I mean, no. So I think what she said was shown, at least from what we know. But I think she shut it down as far as when they were making comments, silly comments like, "Oh, Sam and Sierra were in a
Right.
relationship." But I just think her going and saying, I mean, that Sam and Sierra are like a close. They formed this close, like I forget her verbiage, but just that we formed this close relationship
Yeah.
already right off the bat. So they took that. Kyle took that right back to Tuku and was like, Sam and Sierra running Gata. So it's like that right there was like planting the seed of like my death.
Hmm. Yeah. So, did you feel that when you came into the merge, and was there anything that you could have done to sort of like downplay that the Sam and Sierra power duo?
I mean, Sam and I, we were pretty like, we shouldn't really communicate. We went and did our own thing. I know he started forming a close relationship with Genevieve. I started talking with like even Teeny. Saul, I felt good about, and then you hear him tossing my name out, but I felt really good about Lavo. So we kind of went and formed our own alliances and like mingling with the other tribes. So we felt like we did it well, but I just think ultimately it started right then and there at that journey that like we were clocked.
So in last week's episode, that we saw Saul ends up saving Rachel at that tribal council. From your perspective, you knew you didn't do it. You probably thought Sam didn't do it. What did you think happened? Who do you think at that point? Who did you think sent Rachel that advantage?
Andy. I was like, oh, it had to have been Andy because then I caught him at you see at the when we're out there with the barbecue. I'm like, Andy, you find anything? Like he was just being odd.
Yeah,
And Saul was just so great and like discreet. But I will say that hurt me
yeah.
because they all turned to me and they're like, it was you. Like, and Saul kept turning to me and was like, just giving me a weird look. And I'm like, dude, like ultimately now finding out it was him, but they were all like questioning me and just being like, was it you? But then it sounded like I think Genevieve was the one who was like, I think I know who found it. And then she ultimately knew it was Saul.
And it probably made you feel better about Andy if it's like, oh, he's protecting Rachel.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, then got a strong. But I was certain it was. But then it was when we weren't finding out who sent it. It was like that was the weird part. I'm like, why wouldn't you
Yeah.
just say it? So it didn't really make sense. But
Okay, well, I'm excited to get to talk to you after this episode, not just because of how it ended, but you were the queen of the auction. You found all the money. You're the master of Easter eggs. Eggs a big part of your Survivor story, and you had the most money coming in. I want to talk about. Okay, so first you get the chips, salsa, and guac. I think you spent like what $800 on that.
yes,
Okay, how was it?
all it was great, Rob. I mean, I got buzzed off a little margarita. I felt like I was at home. I mean, honestly, it was amazing, but it looked like I never touched it. Like I
Yeah.
remember Saul looking over and was like, "Damn it, I wish I could have some of that salsa and guac."
Were
It
you able
looked
to
like
screenshot the selfie with Jeff?
no, I'm going to though. I need to like record it back because I'm like that is such like an unbelievable moment where you're like you've watched Survivor all throughout your childhood. You see these people at an auction, which has always been my favorite part. And then I'm like, then I'm standing there with Jeff.
Yeah.
It was just like an out of body experience.
Okay. So then Jeff brings out the big Survivor breakfast. It says, "All right, anybody who wants $200, you're in for it." He brings out the grubs. You took one look and you left.
I was out. I'm like, I'm not on Fear Factor. I'm on Survivor. And I don't know. I give them mad props, but I already knew in my head, I'm like, in order to get that, I already ate. I was good, but I was
Yeah,
just trying to get rid of my money.
yeah.
But I knew that Sam would devour it. Like it was like out of like Sue, Caroline,
The
me.
guy
I'm like,
won't try pineapple. Grub, no problem.
yeah, it's disgusting. And yeah, apparently the grubs, they said they were like super cold and like, oh my God. I'm like, thank God I made the right decision.
Yeah. Okay. But then at the end of the auction, you end up getting the chocolate and peanut butter, and you have to make the decision of who to invite. And you picked Gabe and Caroline. Could you talk through why those two?
So I felt that at that time, Gabe and Caroline both have not eaten anything. I haven't really formed a good relationship or any relationship ultimately with Tuku at this point. So I was like, this was my way, my segue of trying to get in with them. Food makes people happy. I'm like, this is a great like starting point. And yeah, and they both like obviously they with their auction items, it just they sucked. I mean, Gabe got coconut water and he was sitting in front of me the entire time, like just so angry and like, I'm so hungry. And like, I was like, let me get Gabe on my side. Cause at that point, I'm looking at him as like one of the bad guys. And I'm like, if I could be with him and like start this, then why not?
Yeah. And he called you the head of the snake after that.
I know he did. I had the snake. I mean, socially, I would say, I think hearing it back, I mean, I'm like, was I a big threat out there? But I think it was just, I was mingling and I was like, kind of just like playing my social game as I wanted to going in. And now here I am.
I,
So,
I know you said that you had a good relationship with Teeny. How did you end up forming a bond with Teeny?
so Teeny and I, it just clicked. It was something we were sitting in the shelter one day. We've been to similar like restaurants and bars and things as one another since we're living like here on the East Coast together. So I just think we found connections. We knew like a family friend. We found some sort of mutual ground, and we just could kick it. We just talked like she was my best friend my entire life, just laughing constantly. Literally would look at each other, not be able to keep it together, and then when we started talking about that we wanted to work together, I would have went to the end with Teeny. I'm like, I felt so good about her. We just were always on the same page about everybody on the beach. And yeah, she was somebody I was like, I'm going to keep this one around.
And you said that Sam had a good relationship with Genevieve. Were you surprised to see that Genevieve was working so hard to go against the Gata people?
I do. I mean, I didn't realize Genevieve at that point felt so had this like perception of Rachel, and I did same with Caroline. But I think Genevieve also felt great with Sam, and her and we never really formed that connection. So that's why when it came down to Sam or Sierra, like I already knew if there was a choice, she would be getting me out. Because her and Sam already like started forming this connection that her and I didn't have the chance to do.
Sierra, have you gotten any updates on Miss Peppers and how she's doing?
I don't know if Miss Peppers is alive. I hope to God she is because I protected her with my whole heart and I really felt so connected to them. And I was like, that made me feel like at home, and just like my little pet that I had to take care of.
Sierra, was there anything else from your time on Survivor that you wish people got the chance to see?
Rob, I more so, it was just something when it came to the whole going with Annika or taking Andy. I think I'm just frustrated with the consensus of it all because ultimately I knew I was on the bottom of Rachel and Ani. I just automatically knew that like trust and that connection didn't exactly feel there as to what I had with Sam. So I just think between finding out that she left out the part that her and Sam found the advantage together immediately was a red flag to me. And then also blowing up my game at the journey. So I
Yeah.
think, and it just kind of didn't really show through of like the kind of tough situation I was in. So that was just something that just stood out to me that
Yeah, and I know that you got some heat from that on social media, and it's not right. People, let the survivors play their own game. All right,
let
people.
us play the game. I
Okay.
get, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Well, Sierra, thank you so much for making some time to talk with us, and nothing but the best outside Survivor. Okay.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it. Great talking with you.
Great talking to you too. Take care.